In June 2023, a rusting fishing vessel named Adriana, carrying up to 750 desperate souls, sank in international waters off the coast of Pilos. Of these, only 104 survived and some 82 bodies were recovered, and around 500 therefore remained lost to the depths. It's the deadliest migrant shipwreck in the Mediterranean in a decade. 2 years on, a rare development in Greece, 17 members of the Hellenic Coast Guard, including the captain of the vessel LS 920, and senior officials, have all been charged with criminal offences. The accusations are grave: causing a shipwreck, dangerous interference with maritime transport, and failure to render assistance. One might say belatedly that the Greek justice system has stirred. But this isn't an isolated tragedy, and nor can one necessarily have confidence that the Greek justice system will actually deliver real justice. This must be understood within a longer, darker history of paranome epanaprothesi, illegal pushback, or to use the language of international law, refoulement. Pushbacks are not merely operational lapses, they are systematic and systemic, they are illegal, and they've been going on since the 1990s. I could begin this not in Pilos, but in 2001 with Necati Zontal, a Turkish national. He was among 150 migrants detained by the Greek Coast Guard near Crete. They were fired on. The boat they were in was peppered with gunshot. They were imprisoned in a school in Chania and systematically tortured. Necati himself was raped with a truncheon by a Coast Guard officer. And while that Coast Guard officer was doing it, another Coast Guard officer was standing at the door guarding. The Greek authorities denied it, then minimised it, and then tried to cover it up. The officer was eventually tried in a naval court and handed a suspended sentence, a very minimal suspended sentence, a perversion of justice, dressed up as due process. Years later, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that Greece had violated Articles 3 and 13 of the Convention and ordered legislative reform. 4 laws should have been corrected. That was over 15 years ago. Those reforms have never come. Why? Because this isn't about gaps in legislation, it's about a culture of impunity. So with Pilos, the Adriana had been tracked for over 15 hours. Surveillance was active. Frontex, the EU border agency, had raised the alert, yet no rescue was launched. Survivors alleged that the Coast Guard attempted to tow the vessel aggressively, attaching a rope to one side and accelerating sharply, causing the overbalanced boat to capsize. When they reached the shore, survivors say they were told to be quiet. "You have survived death," they were told. "Stop talking." Interpreters were instructed to stifle testimony. Witness intimidation masqueraded as trauma care. This is no aberration. Since the 1990s, Greek border forces have repeatedly been accused of unlawful expulsions from the Evros land border to the Aegean Sea. In 2014, the Pharmakonisi disaster mirrored the tragedy at Pilos. A boat was towed at speed by the Coast Guard, capsized, and 11 people drowned. Again, Greek authorities denied wrongdoing. No one was charged. From 2020 onwards, the New York Times, Der Spiegel, Bellingcat, and the BBC have documented over 1,000 illegal pushbacks. Common methods include towing boats back to Turkish waters, forcibly placing asylum seekers into engineless life rafts and abandoning them at sea, detaining migrants inland and secretly returning them to sea and dumping them in international waters without due process. The European Commission criticises but doesn't act. Frontex, which is heavily staffed by former Greek coast guards, the supposed guardian of EU border integrity, has been accused of complicity, of course. Its former director resigned under investigation. These are not accidental deaths. They are calculated violations of the principle of non-refoulement enshrined in Article 33 of the 1951 Refugee Convention, which Greece ratified. Yet until now, no Greek Coast Guard officer has ever faced a proper criminal trial for these abuses. Victims like Necati Zontal were mocked. Survivors of Pilos were silenced. Journalists and NGO workers who document this are prosecuted. Even the Greek ombudsman, in a rare act of courage, has recommended action against 8 officers for the Pilos case, yet still no internal disciplinary action has been taken. When justice comes, it comes too late, too slow, too symbolic, and with inadequate consequences. The charges against the 17 coastguards may yet be dropped. Even if they proceed to trial, we may recall Najati Zontal's words, "Justice delayed is justice denied." But when it comes, they find ways to let the guilty walk free. We shouldn't be fooled by the pageantry of legal formality. This is not merely about punishing 17 individuals. It's about confronting a state system that has weaponized borders and sanitized cruelty. Greece, the cradle of democracy, cannot be allowed to carry on as the burial ground of human rights. In Greece's favour, because I don't want to be too one-sided here, I will be accused of bias. In Greece's favour, I must point out that the pressure on Greece, one of the southern states, to accommodate so many migrants is abhorrent. The support given by the northern states in Greece, in Europe, to the southern states like Greece, Italy, and Spain that have to shoulder this immense burden has, since the late 1990s, been inadequate. And when I was living in Greece, Greece was overrun with chaos. It couldn't control the situation. It was issuing pink cards willy-nilly and then doing nothing to help the people or to process the people who had been taken in as asylum seekers. It was chaotic. I don't believe the situation has got significantly better. The Pilos shipwreck is not an isolated incident. It's not an isolated tragedy. It's the inevitable result of a lack of investment, of a policy of deterrence that values optics over lives, and it's time to end this hypocrisy. The charges brought forward are only the beginning. Justice demands more than trials. It demands a reckoning. And let's remember the names we do not know, the women and the children beneath the deck of the Adriana, the raped and the beaten in Crete, the drowned in the Aegean. And let's remember that this time they're not pushed back in silence. This time the world is watching as the courts take action. And if the courts don't take action, we're still watching.